A lot of folks don't realize just how close we here in the US have come to nuclear war. Sure, we've all heard about the Cuban Missile Crisis. But what about in 1983, when the USSR's nuclear warning system sent out a false alarm? It warned the Soviets that we'd launched 5 nuclear missiles. And it was a crisis averted by just one officer who realized it was a system error. Or how about even worse, that time when a flock of geese in the Arctic crossed the distant early warning line and tripped our radar system? The birds were mistakenly interpreted as a Soviet bomber attack. Well, happy holidays. We have another one for you today. The story is part of our series of monologues with the website The Warhorse. You can check them out at thewarhorse.org if you haven't heard of them before. This month, we're bringing you all over the world to see what service members see and to hear what military life looks like from the inside. This week, Ed Marr brings us back to a January day in the Philippines, 1 week before he was deployed to Vietnam. I'm Lacey Healy, and this is Things That Go Boom.
January 23rd, 1968 was an exciting day for me. I had no idea just how exciting it would turn out to be. I'd recently returned from 3 weeks of leave in the U.S. and was finishing up an 18-month tour in the Philippines that included several assignments to exotic places up and down the archipelagic nation. At 21, I felt much more worldly and sophisticated than all of my family and friends. January 23rd was my promotion date to Staff Sergeant and my last scheduled shift at Clark Airways, the U.S. Air Force hub that served as a worldwide communications link for military and civilian charter flights. With the resources of the 104th Tactical Fighter Wing, we provided the Philippines' air defense system, which could scramble against any unknown aircraft that might pose a threat. Our mission also included Sky King, which maintained communications with the constantly airborne, nuclear-armed B-52 fleet. We would receive coded messages randomly, but frequently, that we authenticated and then broadcast on all our monitored frequencies. It went like this. Sky King, this is Clark, Do not answer, break. A series of 4 alpha characters we created from a top-secret cipher codebook soon followed. Bravo, Sierra, Zulu, Tango. I repeat, Bravo, Sierra, Zulu, Tango. Authentication time is 173515 Zulu. I repeat, authentication time is 173515 Zulu. This is Clark, out. The purpose was to ensure the B-52s were still in touch and could receive messages from their command headquarters. We sent 50 to 100 of these each day. I began my final 12-hour shift at 6 p.m., manning the watch desk through various mission positions. Then all hell broke loose. The security line on which we received our Sky King messages buzzed. I answered it with a normal response and challenge to the controller on the other end to send back the authorization code based on a mutually held, top-secret challenge response system. They did, then proceeded to give me a Sky King message, an event that had happened literally thousands of times before. Only this time, I couldn't find the code. This happened occasionally, usually through operator error on one side of the link or the other. We would respond unable to authenticate and immediately terminate the communication. Then we'd check ourselves to ensure the error wasn't on our side of the link. But the other security line buzzed before I could do that this time. I went through the entire authentication procedure only to receive another code I couldn't find. So I terminated that link just as the first line lit up again. With 2 failures from 2 different sources, I immediately realized the problem was on my end. I could feel the panic start to rise in my stomach. The third try went the same way as the first 2, and it was amplified by the buzzing of the second line for the second time. It was 2:30 a.m., and I knew I was in trouble. Both lines buzzed and I began to feel sick. And then a phrase popped in my head from Sister Margaret, my 8th grade school teacher, who had prepared us for a statewide exam we'd have to pass to graduate. Before you move on from one math problem to the next, check your work. Sister Margaret had told us over and over again. With that, I started the process from the beginning, scanning every line of the code book against the codes I'd been given. Still no match. During the thousands of times I performed this little ritual, the codes had always been right there on the front of the first page. I did it again. Still no match. Then I turned the page over and realized for the first time there were more codes on the back. I had never looked there, and no one had ever told me to. It had never been necessary. But there, at the very top of the page, were the first, second, third codes that I'd been given. I immediately answered the second line for the second time, and a clearly agitated airman put me through the challenge response system and gave me the fourth code on the back of the page. I quickly created the new Sky King message using this code and gave it to the broadcast station for transmission. I went back to the first line, did the same thing. This went on for several minutes. Then the strangest thing happened. We got a call from an aircraft on several of our monitored frequencies simultaneously with a signal strength that pegged our audio meters and caused the operators to tear their headphones from their ears. Clark, this is Doom 45. Please repeat your Sky King message. This had never happened before. The operator looked at me for a decision, but before I could say anything, it happened again. Clark, this is Ghost Rider 70. Please repeat your Sky King message. Meanwhile, both security lines buzzed again. Clark, this is Titan 47. Please repeat your Sky King message. Buzz, buzz. Clark, this is Panther 55. Please repeat your Sky King message. I've always thought it better to do something rather than nothing. Better to explain your action than to justify your inaction. I told the operator to repeat all the Sky King messages, and I went back to getting new ones and broadcasting those. Just as I began to feel like I had things under control, every other line on my console lit up. First, there was the base duty officer, who told me that we were now at DEFCON 2, one step from nuclear war. He told me to go to the communication safe, equip myself with a .45 caliber pistol kept there, and arm the safe's self-destruction system. The next message came from the Clark Airways tower operator, who instructed me to block all traffic, all altitudes from Clark Airways northbound to the boundary of our airspace just south of Okinawa. I knew this operator quite well. What the hell is going on, I asked. He said he didn't know, but he had just learned that the entire 104th Tactical Fighter Wing, all 60 fighters and dozens of support aircraft, would be leaving en masse over the next 90 minutes or so. As these flights of 3, 4, 5 aircraft departed, they check in with us. Everything happening was classroom stuff. We had never actually practiced or held an exercise on any of this, much less actually done it. After my bollocks beginning, we settled down and actually got the job done. 15 minutes before the end of our shift, our commanding officer showed up. He briefed the oncoming airmen, and we finally found out what happened that night. The North Koreans had seized one of our ships, the USS Pueblo, and taken it and its 83-man crew hostage. They were bound, blindfolded, and taken to Pyongyang, where they were charged with spying. They were held captive for 11 months, during which time they were beaten and tortured. The next day, I learned the Sky King message I initially screwed up were DEFCON 2 notifications and orders to move to their pre-programmed nuclear strike go, no-go positions. I'd been communicating with B-52 pilots on the verge of nuclear war, and I hadn't even known it. A week later, I left for Vietnam.
Ed Marr is a Vietnam service disabled veteran. He spent 24 years in government, 26 in the private sector, and 4 years in the U.S. Air Force. He lives in Great Falls, Virginia. Things That Go Boom is distributed by Inkstick Media and PRX. We are so grateful for our community of listeners like you, and I just want to thank all of you who've given us a donation so far. It really means a lot, you guys. And don't forget, if you donate before the end of the year, the charity Newsmatch will match your donation. Just visit inkstickmedia.com/donate or text GO-BOOM, that's one word, GO-BOOM, to 44321. This piece was produced by Katie Toth and me, with sound design and engineering by Robin Wise. The original text was published on The Warhorse in 2024. The music for our show, as always, is written by Darian Schulman. Thank you to the supporters and the foundations that make our work possible: the Carnegie Corporation of New York and Plowshares Fund, as well as Inkstick's supporters, including the Colomb Foundation, Craig Newmark Philanthropies, Prospect Hill Foundation, and the Jubitz Family Foundation. Thank you for listening, and happy holidays. I'm Lacey Healy.